Hello, Yizhao Martins, licensed marriage and family therapist, couples therapist. I'm recording this video for you from my hometown, Beijing, China. So I'm here to spend my vacation with my children and my family here in Beijing, and I noticed the difference between Beijing and the Bay Area. We have way more people here, and it's very dense. So everywhere we go, we have to wait. Sometimes wait in line, sometimes in a crowded place, sometimes waiting for a taxi. And the city is quite spread out. So sometimes we sit on the taxi for a long time. And I often hear from my child with an ADHD diagnosis that they are bored. That they inspire me to record this video for you, my friends, who may or may not have ADHD as part of your relationship dynamic. So boredom is very interesting, isn't it? I interviewed my child with ADHD this morning as we were cuddling in bed. I asked them, when you feel bored, can you tell me what is your internal experience? And they told me when they are bored, it tends to be number one, they're in a place, there's nothing interesting that keep them engaged. Number two, they don't get to do anything they want to do. Number three, sometimes they are doing something that's very repetitive and is not as exciting for them. I think that's a very good description of boredom internally. Personally, I do not ever feel bored. It's because of my own neurodivergence. So I interviewed my child without the ADHD diagnosis and asked them their internal experience. So my conclusion is, because our brains are different, my child with the ADHD diagnosis have this expectation that the external environment should provide certain kind of stimulation and excitement for them. When the environment fail to do so, they feel bored or they feel there's nothing to do and they get pretty agitated and then impatient. Versus me and my child without the ADHD diagnosis, we are more falling into the autistic spectrum, that spectrum. So we tend to dislike external stimulation sensory-wise. So we never feel bored per se. Instead, we feel overstimulated. And to dig deeper inside, when we don't have the expectation, the external environment, either something or activity or people need to provide that stimulation for us, we tend to feel when there's a lack of stimulation, the default state is what? Peace and ease and comfort. So our problem is the opposite. We tend to feel overstimulated and too much excitement when we're out there and exposed to stimulations. Well, Beijing is a very stimulating city. The moment we step out of our hotel apartment, little scooters and bikes and people and cars will travel in all different directions. And then I often feel overstimulated by the motion, by the sound, by the smell of people, and also by the sight of erratic movement in different directions. It's not very ordered, right? Versus my child with the ADHD diagnosis, when they're in a controlled environment, there's no external stimulation to entertain them. They feel, I hear, a little bit agitated. And I noticed that my child with ADHD tend to go to their sibling, provoking some conflict. So they get into an argument or a tug of war, and that somehow entertain them. They feel, well, I'm not bored anymore when my sibling give me a negative reaction. At least I get something out of it, right? While my child doesn't have ADHD diagnosis, tend to feel very overstimulated by this interaction, very annoyed and angry. And at the end of the day, as a caregiver, I feel overstimulated by this constant bigger seeking negative interaction and anger expression. It's a lot to hold. So I decided to change my way of thinking. Well, if someone with ADHD symptoms were more on this side of this ADHD spectrum and wanted that externalized stimulation, what is it that's lacking inside? I wonder if it would be helpful to turn inside and entertain ourselves without needing to seek out external stimulation and entertainment. That also make me think about adults with ADHD diagnosis in relationships. I also see the dynamic often is the ADHD partner seek conflict between the two of them to get connection and to get interaction or validation or maybe entertainment, I don't know. But that's not to say everyone who has ADHD or on this end of the ADHD spectrum will do so. I also know clients with ADHD tend to withdraw and shut down. They get overstimulated and then they shut down and withdraw in the relationship, and their partner feels a lack of connection. So my conclusion is we all want connection in relationship with other people, but the quality of connection might be different. So personally, I also verify with my child doesn't have ADHD that we want to be heard and understood. We like to info dump and we like to share what we see, what we think, how we feel, and what we learned with the other person, and being seen and validated and heard. And that connection is enough for us to feel engaged. But my child with an ADHD diagnosis share that they don't need that as much. They actually prefer certain things to entertain them, either some activities or something to look at or something to do, not necessarily interacting with people in a deeper level, more as for excitement and newness, right? So that's very interesting. That really helped me to see our neurodivergence, how our brain operates differently. There's no right or wrong way of doing things. We just need different stimulation and we seek connection different ways. And also make me think about that what will help in a relationship if you live and love someone with an ADHD diagnosis or having a lot of ADHD symptoms who also fall into the subgroup wanting external stimulation and excitement to keep them engaged. So this video is actually for both of you, the one with ADHD diagnosis and the partner of those people, to think about and talk about how each of you get entertained and connected in relationships and what are your needs. So I have a couple of tips from my own brain and my own practice and my own thinking. One, I think in case that say if you're staying in line and you are bored, you really want external stimulation, my way is to turn inside and go to my head and start to think about things and entertain my own imagination. Sometimes I think about my clients, I think about people's dynamics and how people interact with each other. That's so fascinating for me that that never gets old, and I get very entertained by those thoughts. Sometimes I plan the future, I think about how to optimize my time and energy. So that's I call the mind category. You can definitely withdraw into your mind and nobody will intervene and control your mind. And you can get a lot out of those internal mental activities. The second one I also really enjoy is to pay attention to my internal experience, sensations, physical sensations. What is the quality of my breath? What is the quality of my muscle and tissue? Do I have tension in a certain part of my body? If I were to stay in line or be in a taxi, for example, for a long time, I notice some achiness and some like tension in a certain part of my body. I may roll my head, I may move about from side to side and, jiggle a little bit to get comfortable, shift weight. And so that's also quite entertaining, and it's also free when you turn inside and breathe, engage certain muscle and relax them. So that's the second one. The third one I think is very hard for most of us, but I want to put it out there. So instead of going back to the past to think about what happened or in the future to plan or entertain yourself in your head, How about observing what's happening in the moment without engaging as much? That's calling to turn into sensation and emotions. So I may notice, what is it like for me to stay in line? I get impatient and frustrated because I have a tendency to achieve things. I like to get things done. So when I'm staying in line, there's a thought that I'm wasting my time. It's not efficient. So I notice a surge of energy in my arms and my legs that I want to move forward. I want to get this over with so I can get to the next thing, right? So when I notice that in me, that's my tendency, is very good. So I validate myself by saying, well, you have a lot of energy, Yi, and you like to get things done. This is a part of you that want to achieve the high energy that did a lot of good for you in your life. So take a deep breath in and stay with the energy, feel the life force, and think about maybe how can I achieve those goals using my energy and later. And sometimes I may move my body slightly, just discharge a little bit of the energy and contain them. Feel the pleasure of me being a high energy person with vitality and no pain in my body. So that's the third one, is actually to rein your energy and stay your center, contain those part of you, and don't lose your energy. So here are my 3 tips. You can pick and choose and experiment, see which one works for you, which one doesn't. The first one is to entertain your mind. The second one is to be in your body. The third one is accept where you are and notice what arises and contain your energy and don't lose your energy and save your energy for your future goals. All right, that's for this week. Thank you for viewing and listening. I will see you next week, my friends.